Parashat Shelach. As we know, the Parashat Shelach is almost completely about the meraglim, about the spies. There's one word that is encountered over and over again in Parashat Shelach. It's the dominating word of the entire Parasha. And that word is not meraglim. That word is aliya. The verb la'alot, to ascend, is used over and over again in the Parsha. Sometimes where it makes sense, and sometimes where it's totally out of context. It's clear, as I will try to demonstrate, that that word is the most important word, the controlling word to describe what is taking place. First, in the Parasha itself, in the story of the Meraglim itself, a quick review of the times that it's used. God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Shelach lecha nashim v'yaturu et eretz Canaan, asher nutenu b'nei Yisrael. Send people who will, the English word to tour is very close to the Hebrew word latur, to investigate or to travel through Eretz Canaan. And then Moshe Rabbeinu picks these people, and then he gives them instructions. What does he say to them? In Perek Yud Gimel, Pasuk Yud Zayin, Vayishlach otam Moshe latur et Eretz Canaan. As God said, send them to travel through the land of Canaan. Moshe sends them to travel through the land of Canaan. Vayomer elehem. What should they do? He says to them, Alu zeba negev va'alitem et tahar. Ulitem et haaretz mahib, etc. He says, go up to the Negev and go up the mountain. Because of the use of the word, as we shall see in the future, all the time that they should be la'alot, 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 the question is, like, why are they going up? They're basically going horizontally. They're going from one land, they're in the desert, and they're going to Eretz Yisrael. So Rashi brings, Chazal say, this is where we know that Eretz Yisrael gavoa mikol haratzot. Eretz Yisrael is always higher than any other land. Therefore, anyone who goes from point A to Eretz Yisrael is going up. That may be true. It doesn't explain, as I'll try to show, the continuous and repetitive use of the word aliyah here. It's also not 100% true. It depends where you're coming from. It's true, they're in the desert, depending on which part of the desert. There are mountains in the desert as well, but very possibly they're going up. If they're leaving Egypt, if you measure them from leaving Egypt, then Egypt is at sea level. That's true. Eretz Yisrael is mostly mountainous. If you're coming from Lebanon, you're not going up to come to Eretz Yisrael. I think Chazal was saying Eretz Yisrael gabo mikol haratzot, not necessarily always geographically. Let us continue our list. So here Moshe Rabbeinu says to them they should go to two places. The second time, alitem el har, but the first place, alitem el negev. Alitem zeba negev. It could be the negev is higher also, but it's not clear from the pasuk that it's higher. You don't understand why he said to go up to the negev and then go up the mountain. What happens after they get there? So it tells us what they did. In pasuk Chaf Aleph 21, Vayalu vayatu et haaretz. They went up and they traveled through the land. They don't need the word Vayalu at all. Mimidbar tzin ad rachov debo hamad Vayalu banegev. And again, as Moshe Rabbeinu said to them to go up into the Negev, so they went up to the land and they went up to the Negev. Again, Vayalu, Vayavo et Chevron, etc. And later on, Pasuk Lamed, after they come back, and Kalev tells the Jews that they should go and not listen to the spies who told them not to go. Vayahas Kalev et ha'am el Moshe vayomer alo na'aleh. We'll go up, we'll go up. There's no way in English to actually translate the double verbs of Hebrew. We should definitely go up. Alo na'aleh v'yarashnu ota ki yachol nuchal la. And as we'll see, there are other aliyot as well in the Pasha. Here's an interesting thing. How do the spies describe themselves? The pasuk says shehem alu. Vayalu vayatur et haaretz. Vayalu banegev vayavo et Chevron. When they come back, they report on what they did. And this is what they say. Vayelchu, pasuk chavav, yud gimel chavav. Vayelchu vayavo el Moshe ve'el Aaron v'kol adat b'nei Yisrael el midbar paran kadesha. Vayashivu otam davar v'et kol eidav vayarum et pri haaretz. Vayisapru lo vayomru. This is what we did. Banu el haaretz asher shelachtanu. They didn't say alinu. God, Moshe had told them ta'alu. And they come back and they say, they're giving a report saying, we did what you told us. In a few seconds they'll say, we have a bad report, but they're first saying, we did just like you told us. Banu, we came. El haaretz asher shelachtanu. V'gam zavat chalav udvashi v'zeh pirya. Later on, a few psukim later, when they repeat this message, I'm skipping a few psukim, ויוציאו דיבת הארץ אשר תרו אותה על בני ישראל לאמור. They slandered the land which they had visited by saying, Haaretz asher avarnu ba laturota, the land that we transversed, the land that we passed through. We didn't go up to the land. We didn't even come to the land. They didn't even say banu. The land she'avarnu ba. Avarnu ba means like we passed through. Well, we're going from point A to point B. There was a little point in the middle that we just happened to pass through. Laturota eretz ochelet yoshva here, and they said it's a very, very bad country, and we shouldn't we shouldn't go there. It's clear that a distinction is being made, that Moshe Rabbeinu had told them to la'alot to Eretz Yisrael, to go up, to ascend, and they said, when they were coming already with a dejecting and depressing message, they said, we came there, we passed through, and it's not much. Those verbs are being used in contradistinction to the command, as well as to God's description of what they did. They really did la'alot, but when they came back, they said, lo alinu, we just passed through. This is even more evident once you realize the distinction in the conversation. It's not a conversation exactly, in the response of the Meraglim to Kalev. Kalev said again, I'm quoting again, Pasuk Lamed, Vayas Kalev et ha'am el Moshe. Kalev brought all the people, hurried them over to Moshe Rabbeinu. Vayomer, and he said, Alo na'aleh v'yarashnu ota ki yachol nuchal la. Let us go up, and we can conquer, we can inherit the land, for we can. Ki yachol nuchal la. We can overcome it. We can succeed. V'anashim asher alu imo amru lo nuchal la'alot el ha'am ki chazaku mimenu. The main message is lo nuchal la'alot. Now they had just alu. Shehem alu. And they say lo nuchal la'alot. Here is the only place where it says, here it says shehem alu. Hanashim asher alu imo. The people who had gone up with Kalev said lo nuchal la'alot. The pasuk says they went up with Kalev. They said lo nuchal la'alot. I think it's clear. Kalev, tzaddik, a successful spy, hu Allah. They also apparently, when they first left Alu, they got a charge from Moshe Rabbeinu, and they went willingly, and they wished to la'alot. When they come back, their mental picture of what they did has changed. So the pasuk says, "Shehem alu imo." Kalev Allah. Kalev went up, and they were with him. So they also went up, but they didn't go up on their own. You can describe their aliya as following Kalev's aliya, following Kalev's leadership. And they say, lo nuchal la'alot. The pasuk says they went up, and they don't believe you can go up, which is exactly the problem, that they don't believe that they can go up. Before we solve this question, it's a question. What's the question? What does the word aliyah mean in this context? Why is it so important? Why is it so stressed? We should just notice that in Tanakh, la'alot doesn't really mean all the time to ascend. Till this point in the Torah, if it says alo, it could be going up a mountain. If there is a mountain, as olimbo. But otherwise, it very often means to travel in a certain context. For instance, in the beginning of Shemot, Paro is worried that he sees the Jews are multiplying, and he devises this theory, this neurotic theory that the Jews are going to revolt. The Jews, when there'll be a war, they will join our enemies, they will fight us, and then, ya'alu min ha'aretz. Where are they going up to? Even if Paro thinks they're going up to Israel, which isn't at all clear, because, they did come from there, but that was several hundred years earlier. He's not worried about where they're going. He's worried that they're leaving. But why would he speak in such firm terms? He's not worried about whether they're going up or down or sideways. He's worried about they're leaving. And secondly, who said they're going to go to Eretz Yisrael? That's not the point. They haven't been there for 210 years or for 190 years. Or for 400 years, for that matter. He says, "Va'alu min ha'aretz" means they will leave. That's all it means. But why? Why does aliyah mean to leave? Another case, in Sefer Yoshua, more in Sefer Shoftim. Every city that the Jews conquer in Eretz Yisrael, when they're conquering Eretz Israel, Hem alu alav. Hem alu alav. Kalev, the prince of the tribe of Yehuda, it says that he conquered the city of Hebron. Those of you who have visited, almost everybody knows that Hebron is one of the highest, if not the highest point, depending where in Hebron, one of the highest points in the Judean mountains. Today, Givat Charasina, which is next to Hebron, I believe is the highest inhabited Jewish settlement in Israel. Inhabited. It's higher than Alon Shvut. It's higher than Yeshivat HaRetzion. And Kalev captured Hebron. And then it says he went to a place called Devir. Devir is described in the Pasuk as being Bishiflat Yehuda. It's in the lowlands of Yehuda. It's on the way down to the sea. Today we call Shiflat Yehuda is Beit Shemesh, areas like that. And it says Shehu Allah al Dvir. He went from Hebron ve'Allah al Dvir. He wasn't going up. The word Allah al Ir, to la'alot al Ir, means to conquer it, means to capture it. The I, alu al I, or the beginning, Perek Aleph of Shoftim, the Jews don't know how to conduct the war. They go and they ask God. And they say, Mi ya'aleh lanu rishona. They don't know where he's going yet. In the end, the answer was Yehuda. But they don't know which city and which tribe is conquering which. It's called Mi ya'aleh lanu rishona. And the answer came, Yehuda ya'aleh. Yehuda ya'aleh. Yehuda should go up. Go up to where? It means to go to fight. You might be going up. You might be going down. Where are they sitting at the time? Okay, you're going to answer me that they were probably still in the Bikat HaYarden. They just crossed over the Jordan River, so they're actually very low. And whatever they're going to conquer is up. That's all true, perhaps, maybe. But it doesn't explain the use of the word. That they're not asking God who should climb the particular mountain in front of them. They're asking God who should go to war. And that's called la'alot. And there are many other examples of that word in that context. So my claim is the following, that the word la'alot in this parasha does not refer to the physical ascending altitude, having less oxygen and a higher number on your altimeter. The word la'alot here means to overcome. It means it's a mental state of going up, meaning overcoming gravity, overcoming an obstacle. It's a mental state of concentration, of resolve to go forward despite the difficulty. When you go downhill, you can roll. When you go uphill, you have to make a strenuous effort. It could very well be, I'm not sure, it could very well be that that's actually the literal meaning of the word. Alo means from al, it means to overcome. The overcoming is la'alot. For instance, the pasuk by Paro, when Paro says va'ala min ha'aretz, he's not interested in all, in which direction they're going, north, south, east, west, up or down. What he's saying is that they're going to break out of living among us. They're already working for us, not slaves yet, but he doesn't want them to leave. It's difficult to leave Egypt, because I'll say it's impossible to leave Egypt without permission from the king. And he's afraid that they will break out. They might be going downhill, but it's not downhill because gravity doesn't help them. They have to break the bonds that keep them there, and that's called la'alot. Any war, any conquering a city, surely a fortified city, is la'alot. We ascend the walls, not because we have to climb the walls, but because we have to break them down. La'alot means to go to a place that involves not merely traveling, or in the words of the tribe, not merely ba'im, not merely going, and surely not merely la'avor, passing through, but it means to ascend in the sense of you make a great effort to get there. And that, I think, is the sin of the Meraglim. That they probably left with the right intentions. They were chosen. The Pasuk says that they were great people. They were chosen for their qualities. He chose them because they were, first of all it says, they were leaders. They were chosen for good reasons. They left Vayalu. When they left, the Pasuk describes it correctly. Vayalu vayatu et haaretz. Vayalu b'negev vayavo ad Hebron. V'sham, what happened when they got to Hebron? Achiman sheishai talma yilidei ha'anak. That's all the Pasuk says. There were the children of giants there. But later on, when they're describing what they did, they said, V'sham ra'inu et hanefilim b'nei anak min hanefilim. When we got, they don't say where, but we know that it's Hebron. The point that was described, Vayalu ad Hebron, Vayalu ad Har. And there were Bnei Anak, the children of giants were there. Vanehi ve'eineinu kachav ha'garvim v'chein hayinu be'eineihem. And when we saw them, we were in our own eyes like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes. What happened? There was a psychological collapse. They left with resolve, but when meeting the big obstacle, the children of the giants representing the strength and the power of the Canaanite population, 3 people, but they obviously represent a general situation. And we, in our own eyes, we became bugs. We lost any sense of resolve, any sense of effort, any sense of ascent. And that's why when they come back, they say, we never went up. We just passed through. And the Pasuk compares them to Kalev. Kalev says, Nalo na'aleh. What does it mean, Nalo na'aleh? Why the double verb? To go up twice. If it's a matter of resolve, of a psychological conviction, then Nalo na'aleh means make the effort. Definitely, indeed, make sure that you are completely doing aliya. And why? Because it is difficult. But Kalev says, Ki yachol nuchal la. If you do it that way, we are guaranteed to succeed. Nachol nuchal la, we will succeed. Because success depends on the limits of your own inner resolve. It doesn't depend on how tall we are. They are taller than us. We're not as tall as them. It doesn't depend on who has a sharper sword, who has a bigger missile. Kalev is saying, Nalon na'aleh, if you do not just going, if you don't just roll into Eretz Yisrael, if you don't just travel to Eretz Yisrael, if you don't just pass through Eretz Yisrael, but you do aliyah, not just aliyah, but alon na'aleh, indeed, there's no way to say it in English. We will go up, then we will succeed. Ki yachol nuchal la. This is the meaning of all the other aliyot that I described before. You conquer a city, you're not going up necessarily. Sometimes you go up, sometimes you go down. Maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower. Not all the cases of those who came, they were going from a low point to a high point. Who knows where they were? The eye. Were they lower than the eye or they're higher than the eye? But to conquer something is to overcome. To overcome is to la'alot. And this becomes especially poignant if we look at the end of the parasha. After it's all over. After God has told them that they're spending 40 years in the desert, and they feel bad, and the Meraglim die, and the rest of the Jews have gotten the message, so some of them, or all of them, do tshuva. If the problem is the psychology, they have really done tshuva. These are the people called the Mapilim, who say, we were bad. We were dejected. We didn't want to go, but we're going to fix that. Perek Yudalid, Pasuk Mem, Vayashkimu vaboker. And the people woke up the next morning. Vaya'alu el rosh hahar leimor. They went up to the tip of the mountain, to say. Doesn't make any sense. Walking isn't saying. Walking is saying. They went up, they ascended, they overcame their limitations and went up to the mountain, which is a statement. And the statement is, Hinenu va'alinu el hamakom. Asher amar Hashem ki chatanu. Hinenu, another word that you can't translate into English. What does it mean, hinenu? We are ready. Hineni. People say hineni. Shmuel said hineni. Hinenu, it's an act of self-resolve. I get myself ready. Hinenu va'alinu. I can't go up. I'm too weak. Now I can go up because I said hinenu. They're climbing the mountain, perhaps physically, is an act of saying, Va'alinu ela makom asher amar Hashem ki chatanu, and Moshe says to them not to go. Now, here's the question. What mountain are we speaking about? Vayashkimu vaboker vayalu el rosh hahar lemor. This mountain has not been mentioned. There is no mountain in the parasha. They're someplace in the desert, and they send spies, and the spies come back. Okay, Eretz Yisrael is a land of mountains, but this is the mountain that's right next to them. There is no mountain there. There might be a mountain there, but it hasn't been mentioned yet. Mefashim have no choice but to say, apparently the path from where they were, Kadesh Barnea, to Eretz Yisrael, the first step, you have to go over a mountain. Apparently. And that's the mountain that they climbed up. maybe that's true, but why is it mentioned? They got up the mountain and they set out to Eretz Israel with saying that we're going to go. Why do they have to climb a mountain when they're doing it? I'm not sure there was a mountain there or not. If there was a mountain, I think God put it there for this reason. And if there wasn't a mountain, then it's describing a metaphoric mountain. The point was, in the morning they got up and they said, we can climb the mountain. We have the resolve. We have the psychological readiness. They did tshuva from the psychological sin of being wimps, and they said, we can conquer because God has said we can do it. And therefore, either there was a mountain there and they climbed it, or there wasn't a mountain there, but they were climbing a mountain anyhow. Vayalu el rosh hahar. The Pasuk says not just they go up to the mountain, they went up to the summit of the mountain. Now Moshe says to them, don't go, because God doesn't want you to go. And resolve is not enough. You also have to have God's help. Al talu ki ein Hashem b'kirbechem, v'lo tinakfu lifnei oyveichem. What's going to happen, Moshe says? The enemy's already there. You don't have to wait till you get to Eretz Canaan. Ki ha'amaleki v'ha'knaani sham lifneichem. The Amaleki and the Knani are living in this very place that you're about to go to, this mountain. V'nafaltem b'cherev, you'll be slaughtered, you'll be cut down by sword. Ki al kein shaftem echoi Hashem v'lo yeh Hashem imachem, because God is not with you. What happened? They did it anyhow. Vaya'apilu la'alot el rosh hahar, vaya'apilu. The word, unusual word. Rashi says it means exactly what I've been describing. They made a strenuous effort. Vayapilu, they gathered all of their strength. Lashon chozek, they strengthened themselves. Vayapilu, la'alot el rosh hahar, they went up to the very top of the mountain. But what happened? Va'knani va'aron brit Hashem lo masho, vayered came down. Ha'amaleki ba'knani yoshe bahar hahu, vayakum vayaktum ad choma. They met the Amalek, and the enemy was high up on the mountain. They came down because they sat on the mountain and they killed these Jews. Okay, you have the picture. The Jews are going up a mountain, the Amaleki coming down the mountain. What are the Amaleki doing on top of the mountain? I guess they lived there. That's what it says. Except that 20 psukim earlier, for no particular reason, it really was not part of the story at all. The pasuk says, when God tells them, you're not going to Eretz Israel, you should go someplace else, you should go back to where you came from. God says, V'amaleki, v'haknani, same two groups. Yoshev ba'emek, they were sitting in the valley. Therefore you should go back to Yam Suf. The pasuk, for no particular reason, said that Amaleki and Knani were living in the valley. And here it says they're living on top of the mountain, which is why I'm convinced that there really wasn't a mountain there. Or if it was, God put it there and put the Amalekim on top of the mountain so that the Amalekim could roll down, and the Jews who are fighting to go up will nevertheless lose. Why? Okay, because there's something, it's not enough. This is not a self-help group. This parasha doesn't say that if you want it, im tirtzu ein zu agada. It's not saying that if you have enough resolve, you'll succeed. It's saying if you don't have resolve, you won't succeed. If you have resolve, you'll succeed because God wants you to succeed. You have to have resolve to do God's will. And they thought they were doing that. They said, "Va'alinu el hamakom asher amar Hashem." We will go up to the place which God wants, which God has spoken about. But Moshe says to them, "Won't work. Ki ein Hashem b'kirbechem." Don't go without God. They had switched to the opposite pole. Before that, they had no inner resolve at all, and that was their sin. And now they did tshuva overnight. They realized it was a mistake. They girded their loins. Vayapilu, they strengthened their inner hearts and resolve. It should have worked in terms of tzidkut and of aveira and mitzvah, in terms of sin and virtue. They had fixed themselves. These were the kind of people who should be conquering the land. It was an amazing turnabout. But unfortunately, there's another lesson to be learned here: that inner resolve doesn't conquer anything. Strength of character doesn't conquer unless it's strength of character for the right thing. And since God said to them not to go, you're going to have to spend 40 years working on something else. So therefore, despite the inner sense of feeling, sometimes all of us have this thing that I just feel that I'm on the right way, and I go and I feel so strong. It's a wonderful psychological thing. It's very important. If you're on, those who grew up with American football know that if you're on the line, the only way to win is to listen to Vince Lombardi and say, I can do it, and therefore you can overcome any obstacle. But only if it's not true. Only if God is behind you, and therefore they get killed. And in fact, they get killed by people who rolled down the hill. The Amalekim, the Knani, didn't have any inner resolve. They were on top of the mountain, and they vayered Amaleki v'Knani. It said so in the pasuk. They weren't just killed, but the Amalekim, the Knani, they just rolled down the hill. And these people were surging up the hill with strength and might and determination, and they got killed anyhow because God said you're going to be killed because you didn't do as God had said. So the meaning of the word aliya in this parasha is that Moshe told the spies, and Kalev told the people to la'alot le'eretz Yisrael. La'alot doesn't mean to go up on an incline of a few degrees. La'alot means to gather your inner strength, to burst the bounds, to burst out of the slavery of Egypt, to overcome any obstacle on the way, to conquer the walls that need to be conquered, to climb the mountains that need to be climbed if there are mountains, and to get to the end of your goal. That's what aliyah means. It doesn't mean to be dragged by God or by Moshe or by circumstance or by hunger to the neighboring land to Egypt. It means to go up, but to go up not in altitude, but to go up in human accomplishment. There is a second message here, and that is that's not good enough. You can do that if you're doing it in the service of God. You can do that if you're going to conquer a worthy goal. What was a worthy goal yesterday might not be a worthy goal today because the circumstances have changed. You have to be attuned to the word of God. Moshe Rabbeinu tells them not to go. But in terms of the meaning of the pasha is not about spies, and it's not about going to Eretz Yisrael. It's about ascending to Eretz Yisrael. Because Eretz Yisrael gavor mikol haratzot, at least for us, Eretz Yisrael is a mountainous goal. It's a goal that requires ascent of spirit, otherwise you won't get there. And its accomplishment is that you did that ascent of spirit. You actually pulled yourself up to a point where you were not able to be beforehand because you decided to do it. Vaya apilu, or hinenu va'alinu, let us get ourselves together and we will go up. And that in fact is the positive meaning of the parasha. Second meaning is, make sure you do it for the right reason. So when they woke up in the morning to do what they hadn't done yesterday, it was too late. Sometimes you missed the boat because you didn't grab the situation, you didn't grab the circumstances when there was time to do it. You didn't gird your loins when the goal was in front of you. And today the goal is already not there. And therefore you're wasting your efforts on something which can't be done. And even Amalekim and Kananim, who simply roll out of bed, will be able to defeat you because without God, you also cannot succeed. What I would say is that I've spoken about the parasha. If anybody thinks that this has implications for the word aliyah in its contemporary usage, I invite them, in fact, to think that way. But I'm just talking about the meaning of the parasha. Everybody can try to apply it to themselves in the way they see fit. Are you fighting to go up? Are you resolving to go up? Are you conquering the goals in front of you? Or are you merely one geography or another geography, merely rolling around from place to place, in the end because of a lack of spirit and a lack of determination, as the Meraglim in the parasha did. Shema b'sarot tovot, yeshurot v'nechamot.